Good morning and welcome to the live series Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you join us from LinkedIn, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that will help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and today we're discussing what you should know about cybersecurity. Our guest today is Daren Dhoray. Daren is an IT professional with over 20 years of industry experience, and he is the founder of Cyber Safety Foundation. It's a non-profit organization with a mission to educate students, parents, teachers on cyber safety, cyberbullying, internet addiction, and social media etiquette, which is such a very important conversation right now. He also holds a BSc of Computer Science and Management at UE, as well as an MA in Creative Design and Entrepreneurship. So let's welcome Daren in this morning. Hello.
Hi, good morning, Pauline, and good morning to all that's tuned in. It's good to be here on this, as I told you, extra day of the year, February 29th.
Yes, it's so special today for so many reasons. So, usually when people come on this show, they're like, 60 minutes, it's such a long time. But these discussions we get into it, we get some feedback as well, and we learn so much. So we're going to try and squeeze out as much from you today, Daren, as possible. So, we've had this conversation many times on this channel about cybersecurity, but I think today is different because we want to find out from someone like you in this space on the general conversation, what is cybersecurity? Because it's one of the more trending keywords online right now when people are searching. So for those who, like me, need to break it down to the simplest of terms, what is cybersecurity?
And that's a really good question to start off the discussion, because you could Google, what is cybersecurity and get a whole host of different answers. But it's really in the name, right? Cyber and security. So we could break it down into two words, right? I think we all know what security means, but let's look at cyber, because I think that's where the key part of it is. But when we say cyber, different people might have different understandings of it, but it's really all internet-related devices and applications. So everything that's connected to the internet, at home or even in the office. So your websites, your servers, things like your security cameras, Internet of Things devices. We have so many smart plugs and smart switches and so on. Those are all part of this whole cyberspace that, we sometimes get lost in on a daily basis. And that forms part of cyber. So cybersecurity is the whole framework or understanding or concept of securing all of those devices, that exists in cyberspace. Some of us have, fridge that are connected to the internet, and it'll ping you and tell you when you run out of eggs, And these sometimes we become a bit oblivious to some of the things that are connected and may not necessarily think about protecting those devices, because everything is connected to the internet now. And that's, the whole understanding of what cybersecurity is. It's being able to secure and protect all of those devices. And we'll get into, obviously, all the reasons why we need to secure those devices. Now, to go a little technical, these devices are referred to as endpoints. So I would probably say a few years ago, we may have only been concerned with antivirus software or firewalls for cybersecurity, implementations. But now we look at EDRs or endpoint detection. So all of these little things that we have around our house, iPads and smart switches and all the computers, even in the business, right? Switches and servers, they are all endpoints. And it means it's an opportunity for a hacker to come into our network or to come into our homes. So we are looking at cybersecurity, protecting all of those devices in the cyber space.
Thanks for that, Daren, because, we think about the future, the conversation is usually around artificial intelligence, AI, and, it's like, oh, this is a scene out of the movie Terminator, but we're living in it now because, once you're connected to the internet, you have vulnerabilities that may happen to you. So you hear all these technical terms, you hear all these conversations, but you're like, what does this even mean? And when it comes to these technical terms, we're going to reference a lot of stuff that we would have read from your site, Daren, which is Cyber Safety TT. And I saw something along the lines of over 22 million spam messages emanating from Trinidad and Tobago between 2022 and 2023. So in this conversation, I mean, everybody who's watching this now and on the replay has an email address. It's as important as a fingerprint in the world that we're living in. And when it comes to that, you have this thing called phishing. And I usually right click on a lot of emails weekly and I'm like, phishing. So for those who are watching this who may even have used it and don't know what it is, what is phishing?
Nice. Well, I mean, phishing is something I'll probably want to do over the weekend, right? On a boat going on to WI. But I know today we're talking about phishing. And I apologize, that joke will never get stale with a cybersecurity professional, right? So we'll see.
Nerd.
So yes, I mean, 22 million spam messages emanating from Trinidad. That means it came from servers that are based or located anywhere in and around Trinidad and Tobago. What does that mean? It's a huge number. Phishing generally comes in the format of email, so that's why it's really important, and it's often categorized as spam. So that's a lot of messages. Some might come to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago's inboxes, and some of those messages might actually, go to the rest of the world. And there are multiple reasons as to what would have caused that, flood of spam messages. But let's start off with defining phishing, right? So it's a technique, really interesting. It's a technique that is not new. It's been used by hackers to trick people into performing some sort of action, which ultimately leads to you sharing some of your personal information, such as your username, passwords, credit card information even. I know you mentioned, sometimes you click on a link, and that's a telltale sign of a phishing email. Now, phishing would have come in the form of text messages a few years back before email became as ubiquitous as it is today. And that's the most common part, text and or email. So many of us would have probably received a phishing email. And just to kind of describe what it probably looked like, it looked like an email that come from a valid or verified source. So a vendor that you're accustomed doing business with, it could be Amazon, Netflix, or even your banks. Many local banks have had phishing emails sent to clients, which are fake emails, but they might have the bank logo, and it may prompt you to do something. Generally, these phishing emails have a sense of urgency. So when you get it, you feel like you need to act almost immediately. So that's phishing, it's very common. But there are types of phishing. And you did mention AI, and we'll probably get into that in a couple seconds, because it's quite scary as to how AI and phishing and scam and spam and so on really is intertwining, making it extremely difficult, even for a seasoned professional like myself, to get duped by seeing something that's not real. So there's phishing, which we spoke about. There's also something called whaling, where the targets are the big fish, the CEOs, the CIOs, the directors, the managing directors of companies. So these emails are targeted towards these individuals because often they are the ones who would send an email saying, hey, go ahead and make this payment, or yes, we approve this. So the hackers know to sort of put extra effort into trying to target and compromise someone at that level. And then, as I mentioned, AI and phishing, there's something called vishing, which could be one out of two things: either voice messages or a fake phone call, where through the use of AI now, you can actually have a recording of someone, sending a message or speaking out, So let me give you an example. A parent might receive a call from a child, their child, and it might sound exactly like them and saying, "Hey, mom, I'm in a bind. I need some assistance. Can you either send me some money, or I can't remember what's the PIN for my card. Can you just let me know what it is?" And it would often come with some sense of urgency saying, "Hey, but I have to pay school fees. I need to do this now." And you're thinking as a parent, "Hey, yeah, let me try and help us out and mitigate the situation as soon as possible." And then there are other cases where people in the business industry may receive a call from another vendor, or they will believe it's a vendor that they're accustomed doing business with. And they may ask them or instruct them to do certain things or ask for information. So that's very, very interesting, because sometimes you might receive that call as a business person while you are preoccupied doing something else. So you're not paying too much attention to the scam that's really happening on your device, on your phone. And it has also extended to videos. So you would probably see some what is referred to as deep fakes. Those are videos, it might look like me, it might sound like me, but I never made those statements, and I was never recorded saying those things. But AI, can actually develop such videos. And that's quite scary. If you Google up actually an incident with respect to Chinese students and phishing, you would see that millions of dollars were scammed out of parents from China based on scams similar to this. Now, the last one I want to refer to on this whole topic of phishing is called quishing. Yes, I know it's not very,
Wow.
not very, creative, but we all know QR codes, right? It's that little, black and white sort of grid-like image that we would scan on our phones to take us to a website or to show us something. So hackers realize, hey, I could just create a fake QR code, stick it over the real QR code. And whenever someone scans it, I'll take them to a phishing website or a fake website and ask them for the information, ask them to log in or send me some information such as credit cards. And that's become quite the scam, particularly in North America, because, QR codes are used at mass to do a lot of business transactions, particularly in that area. So it's something for us to be very well aware of, here today.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot to cover. We're looking at phishing, whaling, vishing, quishing. There's a lot of ishing happening.
Phishing,
And for a lot of folks, it feels it feels like a lot. It feels overwhelming. I could imagine people watching this going, "Oh my gosh, let me just get off the internet." We're going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about how organizations can educate and empower employees to identify and avoid these attempts. So we'll be right back. And welcome back to the live series Straight Off the Bat. Join us on Thursdays as we speak to individuals across multiple industries who will help you understand financial literacy and education. If you're joining us from Facebook, thank you so much. Don't forget to like and follow our page to continue seeing content that'll help you manage your money. I'm your host, Pauline Joseph, and today we're discussing what you should know about cybersecurity. We're joined by Daren Dhoray. He is an IT professional with over 20 years of industry experience, and we want to continue the conversation because there's so much to cover in so little time. So far we've spoken about, what is cybersecurity. We have covered not just phishing, we've covered phishing, quishing, whaling, oh my goodness. So when it comes to all these terminologies, for many of us, it doesn't mean anything until it affects you. So when it comes to running an organization, running a team, can you give us some insight, Daren, on how we can empower employees to identify and lower the risk of these attempts being successful?
Yeah, so, often the part of your whole cybersecurity strategy that's left out or the last to be addressed is cybersecurity awareness and training. I'm not too sure if the audience is aware, and I'm sure you might be aware. The weakest link in your whole cybersecurity framework is the human element. It's often, folks like you and I who may, click on the wrong message, put in a USB driver you weren't supposed to put it in, do things that, sort of go against what the policies and guidelines that set out to ensure that we have a safe and secure network. So, cybersecurity awareness training is definitely, to me, shouldn't be at the tail end. It should be something that's ongoing and throughout the entire cybersecurity strategy. We did mention before some of those traits for phishing emails. In terms of bad grammar, it's often a spammer. Malicious information with respect to fake links and so on. Those are things that you look out for in a phishing email. In the area of AI, we always have to question what we're seeing. Just yesterday or late last night, I made a post on Cyber Safety, and the post actually was a series of images which looked to be Americans from the 1980s. So, it's had this kind of brownish hues, and you saw the old televisions, and of course we know the attire, and it looked like someone just scanned images from the old photo album. But if you looked closely and you read the message that I posted with it, every single image there was AI generated. So you really didn't know what to believe when you looked at that post. Now there are some telltale signs. AI still has a bit of a problem, or at least the free and open source ones have a bit of a problem in generating fingers, and that's a dead giveaway. When you look at a AI generated image, the fingers look like it's alien. So for whatever reason, all the technology, and you can build out this really fantastic image, you could always look at someone's fingers or their toes, and it really looks off, and that's how you can pinpoint whether it's real or not. But then we're seeing some new images from some new videos from OpenAI, and that's quite scary. I mean, it could put production houses out of business. But at the same time as well, you can probably get a video from someone that might be instructing you to do something, and it can be so very convincing. So seek second opinions. I know we have a habit of liking and sharing and acting almost immediately when we receive a post. Now we need to do a bit of diligence, and we being, both personal and professional, we need to do that diligence to ensure that, we're not spreading the virus or the spam message or the phishing, videos, but we are also being, sort of, really, really cautious, and ensuring that, we keep a pretty decent area on the internet, and we don't continue sharing off these phishing and wishing and so on scams.
So for me, I feel a little bit cautious when people start to use the word scary and AI, because we already have this like doomsday approach, and as a small business owner, for me, I'm like, okay, it's going to help me with this thing, you know what I mean? And I think for a lot of companies out there, including, Meta, which is the owner of Facebook, looking at labeling AI generated content, which is still a work in progress. Like, these companies are still trying to figure it out. So not to worry for those who are watching this, we some of us are just all trying to figure it out as we go along, right? So in terms of the weakest link being your employee, can you give us some, tips, maybe 1 or 2 tips as to how folks who have to manage a team remotely can reduce the likelihood of someone clicking on that link? Because within the financial sector, for instance, the Bank Association of Trinidad and Tobago, we've done a lot of work in putting out that information, but it's also important for it to have internal communication with companies, because obviously when it comes to the trust of a brand, banks are, up there. So when you see an email coming to your email inbox and it has the logo of the company that's managing your funds, you click it instantly. So maybe give us some insight, Daren, as how we can maybe slow down a little bit and reduce the likelihood of us, handing over our money to someone who is a Nigerian prince.
Yeah, we wouldn't want that to happen, right? It really boils down to changing our approach to the way in which we operate, right? So yes, you would have cybersecurity awareness training. We may have phishing simulators where intentionally the IT department may send, phishing emails to staff as a test. And if you click on it, then immediately you have to go back to do some training. I know some companies in the Gulf Coast who deal heavily with oil and this type of thing. And if you click on phishing emails at least more than 3 or 5 times, you are actually sanctioned to a certain extent where you may lose some of your pay because they've realized that a simple click on that link could cost them millions or even billions, because we're speaking about the major conglomerates in the world. So it's something that you have to pay quite a lot of attention to. So intentionally introducing your employees to these scams and dealing with it in a controlled environment is definitely one surefire way of learning. And you will become more diligent and maybe skeptical. When you're reading emails and seeing, this does not sound right. From the bank's perspective, I've seen multiple messages from the banks, and it's really, really commendable, where they're indicating that we will not ask you to do certain things. We won't ask you to update your username and password. We won't ask you to immediately go in and do something because you may lose access to your bank accounts, right? And that's something that is going to be a bit difficult for the average user to remember all the time, because these phishing emails and these scams tend to prey on our insecurities and our fears. So, these hackers are professionals in their own right. Coming on to the end of the month, when you have paid, that's when you might get a series of financial fraud emails, right? To make you do certain things in your bank account because you probably have a bit more cash at that point in time that you would have had at the beginning of the month. So those are things that you have to bear in mind as well. If the offer or the email seems too good to be true, then chances are it probably is. I always say refer to the original site, refer to the vendor. Don't click on the email. If you receive an email from any particular bank and it seems to be requesting you to perform some sort of action, again, forget the email. Visit the bank website. Log on to your online banking in a safe and secure manner, by the way. So that means not in a cyber cafe and not on some free Wi-Fi. You want to do that at home or maybe in the office. And once you log into that account, if something is genuinely wrong, you'll be prompted at that point in time. So it's a bit of a rehash of what we mentioned before, but it's really about education. It's about awareness. It's about keeping our guard up and not being too laissez-faire with respect to how we interact and operate in this space. I would probably close off on this one by saying, when we interact with social media platforms and gaming platforms, we tend to, share a bit of information, maybe a bit too much information. Sometimes it might not be all at once, but it might be over a period. And this information that we share can easily be correlated by a hacker to build, an attack profile on an individual, right? So let's just say I have social media accounts across multiple platforms. In one, I might put my phone number. In another, I might put my email address. In another, I might slip up and put my actual physical address. Most of the times, those can be used as your security response answers to questions to gain access to, very secure sites such as your internet banking. So once someone can actually, curate all of your online accounts, and get this, attack profile on you, it'll help them, gain access to you. Pauline, I don't know if you ever saw any of these on Facebook in particular. It's a question that might be asked by a random account which you're not a friend with. And they might say, hey, what's your favorite movie? Or when was the last time you did this? Or, what's your anniversary? And all of those things, people gravitate so quickly towards answering because, it brings a sense of nostalgia and, you feel kind of good inside about sharing this. Hey, I was married for 25 years and you want to boast, but you're actually sharing quite possibly the same type of information that you might use as your answers to your security questions. And I've realized that that's what these sites do. They are all scams. We could probably, use that with a pinch of salt to collate information from the public at mass to build, a database of answers that they can use when they are trying to compromise particular accounts. So again, it might be fun to interact with these things, but, just be very, very cautious in terms of, what you share, and other than just what you click, but the information that you share online as well.
Wow. And it's so interesting you mentioned that social media aspect because many of us, it's been reported we have a loneliness epidemic. People are basically searching for that human connection online. And a lot of us can't separate the reality from what's happening. And it's a lot of multitasking as well. So we have to almost have an outer body experience and just press pause when it comes to interacting online. And, we have this work from home movement as well. But we're going to go on a quick break. And I've seen the data where a lot of us are Googling and searching what is cybersecurity. But in the context of someone who's watching this who has a business, Daren, I would like you to explain to them, this idea of like putting all this money into cybersecurity versus the effort and the team collaboration that's needed.
Yeah. I probably will not win too many fans with this statement, but it's the reality of the situation. You don't need to have an ultimate budget to protect yourself online, right? There are so many different mitigation strategies that you can look at. Let's just even start off with the small business, right? They may not necessarily have in-house IT expertise, and I'm really happy. I'm really, really happy that you mentioned that in the area of computer science there are many different disciplines. So you can actually be a network engineer and really and truly not have any knowledge about web development at all whatsoever, which is a whole different field in computer science, right? So that's important for our employers to understand that, it shouldn't really be what we like to refer to as jack of all trades, right? It really shouldn't be that. You need to have specialists in the fields. And if you cannot hire multiple individuals in the security area, then there is something called IT service management. Those are managed services, I should say, where you have companies who would come in and act as, a full IT service provider, a company basically. And what they're going to do, they're going to monitor your computers, monitor stuff, and if something goes wrong, they can act and fix it. And you really only pay on incidents. So that could significantly reduce your budget or budget allocations for looking to hire, resources and skilled resources. Now, sometimes those skilled resources worked with those managed service providers, right? So it's a surefire way, I think, of ensuring that you have some level of protection. And we looked at taking a risk-based assessment approach to trying to figure out where I should prioritize my spend, right? And I think that's something that we should definitely look at. So you don't necessarily need to have hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in your budget, to address the cybersecurity matter. Of course, it really depends on the size of the organization, right, Pauline? If you are a, Fortune 500 multi-million-dollar company, you probably will need to spend some money. But it's not to say that it's something that you could completely ignore if you don't have the funds to do so.
That jack of all trades conversation is applicable across
the industry, everywhere. Yeah.
Especially when it comes to the online space, like creators, for instance. People believe that anybody could do it. So you have a phone and you're just, pointing and shooting and anybody could do it. But the reality is it's a specialization that you have to pay for. So the idea of someone being good at social media, fixing your laptop,
and looking after your cybersecurity, yeah,
it's just. Can we start a movement to stop that, please? Can anybody
I will spearhead that.
Yes, I would join that Facebook group in a minute. So let's just figure out a way to, shift that conversation. So when it comes to, because we're gonna wrap it up in a minute. When it comes to this broader conversation about this digital ecosystem, because a lot of us are. There are obviously these risks, but a lot of us are benefiting a lot. It's creating a space that never was there before, meaning, there are a lot of big players with deep pockets, but then you have someone who's able to use their phone and access an audience and access revenue that they would have never been able to access before. So when we're talking about cybersecurity, we're not just limiting it to organizations, but we're looking at people who are freelancers. Mm-hmm. So what is the common thread, do you think, a piece of advice to give to anybody who's watching this? And, a lot of us are making money online. What is the main step anyone should take right now to reduce their risk of being scammed?
Yeah. So, we covered, a lot of significant points throughout the entire session this morning. And I think, one thing that maybe, as you say, entrepreneurs and the smaller business owners might tend to ignore is, the information that's coming to them. So they may receive emails from their vendors, from if you're on Windows, for example, from the operating system providers, Microsoft, saying, hey, we need you to actually, patch this because we found a vulnerability that might impact your business. And we get it in the middle of reading an email or just before we go to call a client, and it's like, okay, I'll see to that later. And we know that later never really comes. And what that means is it leaves that door open for that vulnerability to impact on us. So we need to, as small business owners, and it probably happens at a large scale as well, be very cognizant of the fact that, hey, we are sometimes receiving this information to protect us and to protect our systems. So that 10 minutes of inconvenience that you might have to reboot the machine and apply the patch and so on is nothing compared to 10 days of downtime and no access to your services or systems, right? So pay attention to those updates. We also have a lot of very, very knowledgeable folks in the field. I would, advise anyone, small or big companies, join our LinkedIn groups that we have. We have so many, really talented folks: Shiva Parasaram, Alex Sam, TT Cert, Trinidad and Tobago, Cybersecurity Incident Response Team. They all send updates on LinkedIn and different forms. They have newsletters, mailing lists that you could join to keep you up to date in terms of what's happening, what you probably should be looking out for, the ones you need to pay a bit more attention to, and so on. So I think we do have a lot of resources locally. I know you mentioned in terms of, collaboration and so on. So sharing this information. We don't have a habit of reporting, and I think it's because it's not legislated, reporting cybersecurity incidents or cybercrime in Trinidad and Tobago. And because of that, if we kind of stay away from it, we're going to have that issue of the world at large, or our country at large, not knowing how bad it is. So I think we need to have this sort of habit of reporting cybercrime, so that the rest of the industry will know, okay, hey, this happened, I probably need to check this to ensure it doesn't happen to me. Because you often have, in a particular region, repeat offenders of the same vulnerability, because the hackers realize, hey, no one in this area is looking at this particular vulnerability, so let's prey on it. So if it's shared and the information is known, then it could go a long way to assisting other individuals in terms of they not falling prey to it as well.
Thank you so much for that, Daren. I think I'd like to add, the idea of reporting being, scammed. There's this sense of fear that, and then there are people who go online and be like, oh, I can't believe you fell for that. That doesn't help us move along. To expose these people, because the more silent you are, the more times this will happen to someone else. So I think keyboard warriors, can we support people and not shame them when they actually do share their experiences? So on that note, Daren, I also want to, outside of thanking you for sharing such a wealth of knowledge, we have put some links online on the comment section, because on the learn.cybersafety.com, there's some courses. One, that very intriguing internet addiction test. I can tell you that will be one I'll probably pass. So I think that's a great way for us to start and just, shift into our mental health. But also the Cyber Safety Students is a course that you can check out. These things are available locally. In addition to that, there are cybersecurity courses available for free on Google. We've put that in the comment section as well. So thanks again to Daren for joining us today. I learned a lot. I hope you did as well, on sharing insight on what you should know about cybersecurity. So don't forget to sign up to be notified for our next live show via the link in the comments. And as always, be sure to follow our page. If you're doing so on YouTube, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you soon. Thanks again. Bye, everyone.